what is the biggest difficulty that you have helping parents understand that this is a clear and present danger?
That's a tough question because there are a number of hurdles to overcome. I think probably the biggest hurdle is that this idea that it's not my kids. Nobody ever wants to think the worst about their kids. To approach it in this way is to acknowledge that it could be your kids.
Expect that this is going to be a problem, right? I mean, isn't it safe to assume that this temptation will be presented to your children?
Yes, and that is the case. Even if your kids are not going to go looking for this kind of thing is out there looking for your kids.
That's right.
They're hunted in a way. We do have an enemy that's prowling around like a roaring lion seeking for someone to devour.
Yeah.
And that enemy right now is the pornography industry. You know, when I said that the highest percentage of online pornography users are kids ages 12 to 17, you better believe that they're being targeted. You know, the producers of these things don't sit around saying, who's our biggest market, let's not do anything for them. They're in the business to make money, they're in the business to succeed. That's a dangerous place to put our kids. Okay. Your kids are in the crosshairs of the enemy.
So the first obstacle of parents taking this seriously is the idea that not in my home. This won't happen here because I know my kids. They would never do this kind of thing.
Right. Another obstacle, to be honest, are parents who are struggling with this issue themselves. Parents who are enslaved to pornography or masturbation, who are engaged in these activities, feel like they don't have the moral high ground to hold their kids to a higher standard than they themselves have set for themselves. Or they may be struggling to break free and are having difficulty doing that and are waiting until they're free before they can help their kids. And that's absolutely false.
Yeah,
that's not okay. An alcoholic parent wouldn't give their kids a beer.
I would think an alcoholic parent would tell their kids, look, you don't want to go down this path that I've been down.
Yeah. Parents who overeat don't want to give their kids too much food. Parents who struggle with depression want to help their kids avoid that kind of, and so it's just, there's all these instances where, you know, we can't give up our God-given responsibility because we ourselves struggle.
Well, we've mentioned two things here. That parents, the idea that the impediment would be, oh, it doesn't happen here. Secondly, I don't want to talk about it because I'm struggling with this myself. Are there other impediments?
Well, a lot of us have grown up in homes where it's just never talked about. You don't talk about these kind of things. It's terrifying for some people to bring up. It's uncomfortable to talk about. When I started talking about this to parents of teens, I was terrified to stand up in front of the room and say these things. And
well, let me ask you this. When you were growing up, were you really anxious to talk to your parents about this kind of thing?
Oh, not at all. Never. I probably would have died. You know.
I think this is always funny. We have Planned Parenthood types who keep coming around saying, "Oh, look, your kids are just so anxious to talk about this kind of thing." That's not been my experience. No. It wasn't my experience as a kid. I basically give me the facts if I need them. I don't really want to talk to you about this, Mom. Dad,
exactly.
You know.
We've created this cultural taboo around this subject, and it can't be the case. It can't be something that's really awkward and terrible to have to talk about. And the only people that are going to make that happen are the parents, because the kids aren't going to be the ones to change that culture of silence. And it's not okay because your kids just aren't equipped to deal with this stuff on their own, and you certainly don't want them learning about all this stuff from the internet or from movies or TV or even some of their friends. Like, you want them to learn about this stuff from you. So that's why, you know, when you gave the example of the perfect family who was doing everything right, talking about this stuff early and often so it's not like, oh my gosh, the talk, is really, really important. There shouldn't be the talk in your home. There should be lots of conversations that are happening early on at age-appropriate levels so that this topic is never a taboo with all kinds of mystique and curiosity that surrounds it. Because that kind of thing drives the teens, drives your kids to find the answers somewhere else.
Parents are with their children in the marketplace, they're listening to music, they watch movies, and it's almost impossible not to be assaulted from time to time by images or philosophies or behaviors that you don't approve of. Do you think it's a good idea to seize on those moments and say why this kind of behavior, this kind of imagery, this kind of philosophy leads not to abundant life, but to a destructive way of life?
Absolutely. We live in a culture that's very saturated in things that are very, very opposed to Christian ideals and ultimately opposed to happiness in the fullest sense of the word. And to start working with your kids, even at a very early age, when you encounter these things that are so prevalent and so contrary to happiness. Like, it could be a magazine cover at a checkout line at the grocery store. It could be, like you said, a philosophy or language in a movie and things like that. To hide from them and to pretend like they're not there,
right,
or to let that opportunity pass by without helping your kids learn how to think these things through is setting them up for failure when they leave your house. It's really important to help your kids learn how to process the world that we live in a way that they'll be able to continue to live in it without the protection that you provide to them as they're younger. So these opportunities for pointing out the negative in our culture, but also pointing out the good, because there's a lot of great things in our culture. There's a lot of beauty. There's a lot of really great art. There's a lot of really fine thinking out there in our world too. And so to be able to help them recognize the good and the bad is to help them live in a world that they're going to have to live in and is only going to be much more challenging as time goes on.